Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to the new tier list video for the new patch. Blaziken's coming out. It hasn't come out when this video is being released, but both cursed items are out, and you can see here I have them in A tier. We'll hop in the tier list soon. We're doing a quick held item tier list, just very quick, and then Pokemon tier list. I am full disclosure trying to make my tier list videos shorter because they tend to be longer. I've been trying to make them shorter the past few tier list videos, but I end up talking way more than I should. So I'm working on that, guys. I'm wearing a coat. I know it's still kind of summer for most people, but it's really cold today. And this is actually some drip I picked up in Japan. So I really love it. It's really good quality. It looks pretty good. Also got a new haircut, so let me know if it's a W or not in the comments. But yeah, let's hop in the video. So muscle band and number one. So this is going to look wildly different from my last held item tier list. And that's because in the comments, a lot of you guys rightfully, you had a great point with this. Because I think I had EXP share as my number one item. You were like, oh, but like EXP share can only be played on a couple Pokemon, right? And I hadn't fully thought it out like that. Like, yeah, it should be the items that can be played the most widely on all the Pokemon, right? For the held items while still being very good, right? So Muscle Band is the universal item. You could run this on any Pokemon and it would be good. There are some Pokemon it's a little troll, but you can still get value out of it on every single Pokemon, and obviously it's insanely good on every Pokemon. So if there was one item I would pick to tell people to get level 30, it's Muscle Band. The other item is probably Focus Band, but Focus Band's actually an A tier, and we'll get to that. So the next one is Slick Spoon. So Slick Spoon is insanely broken, the best special attack item. It's insane this thing hasn't gotten nerfed. I think it was run on almost every single special attacker at Worlds. It's just insanely broken. I'm sure all of you recognize how broken it is. Don't need to go into too much detail. Buddy Barrier, another solid, just this one's more for tanks. There are a couple like carry Pokemon you can run it on, but you want to run it on almost every tank. Very good. Attack weight, extremely good on the Pokemon that's stacked. This is one that's more niche. Not every Pokemon's going to want to run it. However, the Pokemon that do run it, it's insanely broken on, and it is part of the reason why these Pokemon are so good. If attack weight didn't exist, I think a lot of Pokemon would drop down on the list, which we'll go into later on. But EXP share next. So EXP share I'd rate it number one. Obviously still extremely good, but you only want to run it on supports and defenders, right? So that's why it has dropped down to here. Still the best, one of the best items in the game. You want to run it guaranteed on your team. You want at least one. Most teams run two, and two is very good. That's almost like, I think at Worlds, every single team ran EXP share, which, funny story, my team was basically the only team to run double EXP share last Worlds, and every team copied us at Worlds this year. Still to Rio finals again, but I actually have a story time video coming out on that later on, so stay tuned. But getting into A tier here, Razor Claw, extremely broken item too for damage. A lot of the new Pokemon especially get insane damage numbers with this item, so it's just really good. The new curse item, so the new patch just came out, right? So this is kind of more of a prediction, because until I've played it a lot, right, like my opinion might change once I've played it a lot. But my general opinion right now is that they're really good. I really like them. So I think they're A tier, and I think they actually counter Focus Band, which is why Focus Band has dropped down here, because they counter all healing. And the thing I love about them is you can actually kill people on their pads now, and that's so good for people who want to snowball their games, get really annoyed by people who can just stay safe on pad, right? So I love the fact you can kill people on pad. It counters, like, healing's been so broken in the game for so long. I think this is a great addition. A lot of people think it will ruin the game. I think they're a great addition. They're not too overpowered, but they counter a lot of things, and it's actually really good. Like, these actually help fight Mewtwo in the meta, because Mewtwo with the support on him, like a Comfy or something, is really annoying. But this can help reduce the healing that Mewtwo will get. Especially both Mewtwo's have recover, right? So I love these items. I think they're great. I ran it on my Pikachu video right before this video. You can go check that out. And I thought it was amazing. I was doing over 100k damage on Pikachu every game. Now Focus Band. Focus Band's obviously really good, but especially in draft, because remember, I make these tier lists for competitive tournaments, right? So in draft, when you can see the enemy team and what they've drafted, and most teams are still going to draft a healer, even with these existing in the game. The Focus Band is just, people are going to start not playing it into these because they know like curse items might be run. But if you know there's a Pokemon that really loves to run Focus Band, you just run the curse items. It hard counters Focus Band, I'm telling you. I was one-shotting people through their Focus Band on multiple different Pokemon. A9 and Pikachu mainly, but yeah. Scope Lens, Weakness Policy, Choice Specs. These ones have all been in the game for a long time. Pretty self-explanatory. I see a lot of people on Copium about Rescue Hood. No, it is not good. Most likely there's usually another item that is way better to run, trust me. I am friends with everyone in Math Cord, all of the top people at Math in the game, and they all do not recommend Rescue Hood. No matter what numbers you think you have run yourself, trust me, it is not good. Same with Drain Crown and these other items down here, okay? So, anyways, hopping into our tier list. So, wow, what a surprise. The 2 legendaries are at the top of the tier list. Who would have thought? That's crazy. So, Mewtwo Y, the nerfs barely touched this thing. Still best Pokemon in the game. Now, some of you might be curious as to why Zacian's up here. So, Pokémon Unite did it again, and they released another game-breaking bug on a legendary. So, with this patch, now you can actually infinitely unite on Zacian right away. So, before you press your Unite once, and it goes to like 70% charge, right? But you get a shield. Now you press your Unite, you get a shield, and you get it back instantly if you cancel it. So you get infinite shield. So Zacian's just probably like, it could be better than Mewtwo. I'm not sure with this bug. I don't think so. I think Mewtwo Y is so strong that it's better than this fucking infinity Unite Zacian bug. But yeah, Zacian is just extremely broken. They actually did nerf him too. They tried to nerf him with this bug not being out, but the nerf obviously wasn't enough for how broken this bug is. In my opinion, it's so good. So the nerf was actually to his passive, so his charging up score actually got nerfed in a way where you can't do it instantly. So he would be a lot down on the tier list if this bug didn't exist. I'd probably put him honestly in A tier. I think he might be pretty bad now. Probably bottom of S tier, but we'll see. Next is Lapras. This thing was untouched. It is the only Pokemon in the game that can reliably kill Mewtwo Y. Even Zacian can't. So, it extremely, like, probably the best Mewtwo Y counter in the game. My last video actually was of me playing Lapras carrying Jungle Book to get rank 1 in the world. Destroying Mewtwo Y. I was like level 15 at the end of the game in duo queue. So definitely check that out if you want to see how to counter Mewtwo Y in this meta. But yeah, next is Umbreon. So Umbreon also untouched. Actually, not untouched because it got a buff. So now you can mean look objectives, which makes mean look so much better. So much better. They did nerf Snarl actually. I forgot. So not untouched. My bad on that. But the Snarl nerfs were minimal. Snarl's still good. Wish was untouched, which Wish is still good. So I think Umbreon is still extremely strong. And especially the mean look buff is actually amazing for Umbreon. It's going to be able to do so much damage to objectives now. So yeah. Again, this is competitive. So you're going to see defenders up here like Umbreon and Slowbro. In solo queue, would I rate them this high? Probably a tier lower. Slowbro actually is broken in solo queue, so maybe it'd stay in the same tier, but Umbreon not so much. But keep in mind, this is competitive tournament tier list. So next is Inteleon. They gave Inteleon the most broken fucking buff. If I had to name this patch, I would name it the ADC meta, because Mewtwo Y and Inteleon are kings of this patch. They absolutely demolish everything. The buff to Inteleon actually wasn't in the patch notes. They made it so liquidation can't get canceled by CC. So before, a lot of Pokemon like a Hoopa with like Phantom Force could easily cancel an Inteleon mid liquidation, cancel all that damage. Now it can't. So now, for example, Zoroark used to be one of the best counters to Inteleon. You just get on top of it, you Shadow Claw it, a liquidation Inteleon can't do anything, right? But now the Inteleon could kill a Zoroark during the Zoroark's combo because it can't cancel liquidation anymore. So Inteleon is extremely broken. Extremely broken. The only reason it's not higher up is because all of these other Pokemon are more broken. And honestly, I'm not even sure I should put Inteleon above Mewtwo X because Mewtwo X is still very, very strong. And it does counter Inteleon, but I think because of the existence of Mewtwo Y, Mewtwo X is just a lot worse. So I honestly think I could put Mewtwo X like above Lapras if Mewtwo Y didn't exist. But obviously you want a Y on your team instead. So sometimes the existence of certain Pokemon is going to drastically change the rest of the tier list. Why? Because it's the Pokemon that are best at countering those Pokemon that are going to be rated higher. So for example, Leafeon, I'm actually not a big fan of. If you saw my last tier list, I rated it pretty low. Actually, I think I rated it like A tier or something. But it's actually an S tier now because it is really good against Mewtwo Y, one of the best Pokemon into Mewtwo Y. And it's gonna buff certain Pokemon and how good they are based on their matchups into the top meta Pokemon. That's just how MOBAs work. So Blue Urshifu, extremely good counter into Mewtwo Y actually. Probably the best counter to Mewtwo Y as a carry, because Lapras can be a carry, but it's hard to snowball the early game as Lapras. Meanwhile, Blue Urshifu can reliably be a carry that can destroy a Mewtwo Y throughout the game. So a good Blue Urshifu could absolutely destroy a Mewtwo Y. And yeah, Blue Urshifu is just broken, especially on low pain, zero pain. I've already gone over this. So yeah, Slowbro. So a lot of I post this tier list on Twitter every time. It gets a ton of views. Honestly, more views than it does on my YouTube. It gets like over 200k views. And there's always people confused about Slowbro's placement. Slowbro, when combined with any other like good carry Pokemon, will just one-shot someone. You need a Blissey to protect that person, but if your team has Umbreon and Slowbro, which Umbreon just goes Wish, you can play it as support, it will just one-shot the Blissey and the person Slowbro United. So Slowbro is literally just, it's a nuke. It's holding someone in place, there's no counterplay for like 3 seconds, and there's no counterplay, they're just gonna die, right? If you are good at Slowbro Unite. Not to mention, one of the hardest Pokemon in the game to kill, self-sustain, so it can easily play with comfy or minimal healing. Self-sustain, super tanky, does a lot of damage, really good CC. It's just the whole package. It has everything you need. It's insanely broken as a defender. And again, this is competitive tier list, so defenders are going to be broken. Even in solo queue, you run like Scald, you do like 200k. Like, you do so much damage. So Slowbro is insanely broken. Dodrio. So Dodrio is one of those Pokemon that is really skill based, but I think a really good Dodrio really shows like how good they are. And again, Dodrio is like probably one of the best counters to Mewtwo Y. If I had to name 3 counters into Mewtwo Y in this meta, it's Lapras, Blue Urshifu, Dodrio, maybe Zacian if you're bug abusing. I don't recommend bug abusing. Yeah, those are the 3 counters I would list. A9 got a nerf, but honestly she feels untouched, and I really love her with the new cursed item. She's now a tank killer, because a lot of tanks like Slowbro, Trevenant, which Slowbro is kind of unaffected by A9, but it's more the focus band. But Slowbro's healing actually does not get affected by the cursed items, but the focus band will. Actually, Slack Off will, but just not Amnesia healing. But yeah, just Blissey, Trevenant, all these tanks that self-sustain, even Lapras, A9 can now reliably kill it. Being able to reduce healing is actually so good on A9. it's actually so good. So in a way, she got buffed by this patch with the new item. I think it's really good on her. Venusaur, I've already gone over why Venusaur is so good. Solar Beam is actually another counter to Mewtwo Y. Not really, because Mewtwo Y can kind of dash out of it. But if you catch Mewtwo Y without dash, which will happen in a team fight, you will just one-shot the Mewtwo Y with your Unite move plus Solar Beam. Petal Dance doesn't counter it so much. Petal Dance is not as good as in this meta. So Venusaur has kind of fallen down a little bit, but I still think Solar Beam is really strong into these ADCs, into Inteleon too. So yeah, Mew was untouched. Mew is still really strong, versatile. Blaziken. So this is my prediction of where I think Blaziken will be. It could be wildly wrong, but because the numbers are just, it's hard to tell on the PTS server. So we'll see in game once I test it. But this is my prediction of where it'll be. Hopefully I'm right, because it looks really fun to play. I hope it's good. But yeah. Leafeon. So I already went over Leafeon. We can skip over this one. Zoroark has fallen down a bit. I actually put it under Leafeon. That's because it gets destroyed by Inteleon now. It gets destroyed by Mewtwo Y. It gets destroyed by Blue Urshifu, by Mewtwo X. I just don't think it has a place in the meta against the top meta Pokemon. Now in draft, there will always be good drafts for Zoroark. So that's why it's still in S tier. I just think it's really not good into any of the S plus tier Pokemon. Blissey, self-explanatory. It's the best pocket with Mewtwo Y. That's why it's up so high. Otherwise, it would be a lot lower. Again, certain Pokemon are going to change the placement of other Pokemon that are at the top of the meta. Trevenant, super strong. Really tanky. One of the best defenders into these top tier meta Pokemon right now, because it has so much sustain if you play it right. Hoopa, untouched. Hoopa's falling down a bit because, again, you kind of don't want a Hoopa with your Mewtwo Y. You want like a Blissey or a Comfey. So honestly, maybe it should go down a tier, but in competitive where there's draft, I'm assuming a team won't get Mewtwo Y and Blissey and Comfey. Like you can ban them, you can draft them, so Hoopa will actually be played. But in solo queue, probably it's not that good right now. Now, Goodra. So Goodra got buffed and nerfed. So its passive got buffed, but one of its moves got nerfed. I still think it's really strong. It's actually underrated, which is why I have it all the way up here. People are really underrating this thing. I think it's actually extremely strong. You can see I have it at the top of A tier. So really big fan of Goodra. It did get a little nerfed with this healing reduction item coming out, but I still don't think it's enough to stop the menace that is Goodra. And I actually think the passive buff is really, really good for Goodra. Has a really good lane. So I might be on Copium with this pick. It might have to be a little lower, but if the curse item really fucks it, then it would be lower. So if the curse items are run like by every single Pokemon, then Goodra is going to be fucked. But if that's not the case, if it can still survive against this curse item, I think it's really good. Lucario. So Lucario is actually really good into Mewtwo Y. It's really good at killing Mewtwo Y, surprisingly. So that's why it's actually rated a lot higher, because it's one of the consistent, like, sort of counters that's not really meta, that's really good into Mewtwo Y. I've actually enjoyed Lucario in this meta because of that fact. So it's also really good into some of these other Pokemon like Inteleon, A9. So yeah, Lucario is solid in this meta for once. This is like the best meta for Lucario it's been in a while. Blastoise, just very strong, tanky. I think Rapid Spin is the play in this meta. I do not think Hydro Pump Surf is very good at all, just because Mewtwo Y and Inteleon, the top tier Pokemon in this meta, have so much movement. They're just gonna dodge your Surf. It's so useless. Delphox, with the new healing reduction item, I don't know if that's the play on her, but 80% healing reduction sounds wild actually. So I think she's gotten a buff this patch with that, and we'll see how good she is. This is where I think she'll be placed. Serena. So this was one that people on Twitter were surprised about too. I think the Serena buffs are actually pretty tangible, pretty good. It still gets fucked by Mewtwo Y, don't get me wrong, but I think Stomp is feeling really good. I really like Trop Kick. Grassy Glide's fine too, but I actually think it has a place into some of the meta Pokemon. Not really Mewtwo Y and Inteleon, but Stomp has always had good interactions with like Blue or Shifu, speedsters like Zoroark and Dodrio. It actually Serena farms the speedsters, even like Leafeon. It'll probably farm Blaziken too. Stomp has a mini stun, which like literally cancels everything for some reason. So it's really good into melees. Pikachu. So this is one I might be on Copio about, but I actually think Pikachu's really strong. People don't believe me, but I think with the curse item, Thunderbolt Thunder, it actually feels like it does a lot of damage, and it actually feels pretty good into Mewtwo Y. So I might be on Copium for this, but I actually think Pikachu feels strong in this meta. Let me know if you agree in the comments. Or not agree. I'd love to hear your opinion. But yeah, Gardevoir. I'm not a big fan of Gardevoir, but I still recognize she's strong. She still is playable, and she's still pretty good. So she's rated up here. Same with Glaceon. I don't like where they are in the meta, but they are still pretty strong. So they're still going to be in this tier. Comfy, self-explanatory. I just only think she's good at pocketing certain Pokemon, which is why she's this low, right? Because you only want her on like the Mewtwo's and Speedsters. You don't really want her with any other comps. So Buzzwole I'm also not a fan of in this meta. It's just so strong, especially competitively. People don't realize in solo queue. The stats, it's just, I'm not a fan of these three Pokemon, Gardevoir, Glaceon, and Buzzwole in the meta, but the stats are just so strong. It's really hard to put them lower. Garchomp, I'm actually a fan of in this meta. I think it does pretty good into some of the meta Pokemon. But the stats are not really there. It did get a buff, which helped a lot, which is why it's an A tier. But its kit is not good enough. I think just on the base level, it gets fucked by eject buttons and stuff unless it has its Unite move. So Garchomp always struggles with that unless it's like really, really strong. So I don't think the base stats are there to make it like super meta, but I think it's definitely playable. Crustle. So Crustle at the top of B tier. I put this thing in F tier in so many of my tier lists, and I am a Crustle believer now, guys. I am a Crustle believer. It does so much damage. It actually feels insanely strong. I might be on Copio putting it this high, but I had to do it for Crustle. If there's any patch to do it, this is the time. I really do think it feels really strong. I'm really happy for Crustle. Crustle's really fun. Yeah. I think the buffs did wonders for it, actually, and it actually, like, I've died to Crustle so many times now, and I'm like, holy fuck, it's broken. It does so much damage. Decidueye, I think Decidueye is actually really good into Mewtwo Y at countering it, because it has so much range. Just kind of that ranged poke can actually counter Mewtwo Y a bit. So that's why it's rated up higher, but I think Decidueye is just good in general. Obviously it has to be a good game for Decidueye, but that'll happen in draft a lot, not really solo queue. But yeah, Espeon and Sylveon, they're obviously solid overall, just not really broken in the meta, but they're still good picks. They'll do well. And that's why they're top of B tier. Not too bad. Yeah, Scyther. Scyther is just too squishy. It's a lot of fun to play. It does a lot of damage, so it can be played in certain comps. It's too squishy. It really dies really fast. And that's what it struggles with. Candle is just solid overall. It doesn't really have a place in the meta, right? Like, there's scenes that do more damage. There's scenes that survive better and do more damage. So it just kind of outclassed, I think, in this meta. But it's still a good pick. Like, you can still win a lot with Candles. So I think it's pretty good. Eldegoss and Clefable. So normally I'd have Clefable over Eldegoss. I'm actually a big Eldegoss hater. I think if you look at the stats of Worlds, Eldegoss did horrible. It's a bait in competitive. I think in solo queue, it's like a top 10 solo queue Pokemon. Don't get me wrong. In competitive, though, I think it's utter garbage. However, with the new curse items, Clefable's mainly healing, right? Eldegoss has shielding. So I think actually Eldegoss wins out in that. So that's my prediction in this meta. LD will be a little better than Clefable, but we will see. Red Urshifu, I'm a big hater of. I think Red Urshifu is dog shit. I do not like this Pokemon. I think it's so bad. Maybe I'm biased because it lost us a lot of tournaments, but I'm really not a fan. Snorlax, it's just outclassed by the other defenders. Again, the holy trinity of defenders: Lapras, Umbreon, Slowbro. This Snorlax never gets picked. Honestly, it's not that bad of a defender. Like, if all the defenders are banned and you had to pick this, like, it's still really good, but it's just outclassed by all these other defenders. Like, they just all do better than it. So it's unlucky for Snorlax. I actually think it's not that bad. There's just more defenders that are broken. Like, there's 4 good defender options out there. So Snorlax will never get picked because of that. Cramorant, I think Cramorant's actually pretty strong. It has a couple hard counters to it, which the Mewtwo can just unite on it when it's like standing still. Usually its teammates are like hovering near it and it dies. So I think all the counters are like too strong in the meta right now for it to do anything. Like Leafeon also hard fucks it. But I'm a fan of Cram. I think this B tier is still like playable in competitive. So these are mons that, like, if you're really good at, you can easily play them in competitive. You can probably get to like top 4 in the world playing these Pokemon. So don't get me wrong, they're good. It's just, are they really that meta? There's probably more broken, like, easier to play Pokemon, you know? So that's what this B tier is for. Now the C tier, I think, are actually like not very good Pokemon. And the C and F tier are where you get to, like, you can play these Pokemon in solo queue, don't get me wrong. And you can probably win on them, but I have to zoom in here so you guys can actually see. You can play these Pokemon in solo queue and you can probably win on them, but in competitive, I don't think so. There are a couple teams in Worlds that played Machamp, but honestly, I was not a fan at all. I just don't think these Pokemon are that good. Aegislash gets hard fucked by A9 and other meta Pokemon. Machamp's just a wild card, really hard to play, and I just don't think its Unite does enough damage. Its Unite needs to be like a nuke, and then it would actually be good, you know? Like, I need them to buff the Machamp Unite, actually. That would make it a lot more fun, a lot more skill-based. Cinderace. I think like, Mewtwo Y is just better Cinderace. It's literally just better Cinderace. It's Cinderace 2.0, but way better. They both have dashes, but Mewtwo Y has 2 dashes. Right? They both have Unstoppables, but Mewtwo Y's Unstoppable is like 5 times longer than Blaze Kick. They both have like a pushback, but Mewtwo Y's pushback is stronger, does more damage. And their Unite, Mewtwo Y has 5 Cinder Unites. Like, think about it. Mewtwo Y is just better Cinderace. It's power cut Cinderace. Cinderace 2.0, but better. Dragonite, I think with Outrage, it's actually like really good in solo queue. Like, it farms pub solo queue. It's not good in competitive, but Outrage is actually fire in solo queue. Hyper Beams and Med in competitive, you can play it if you want, but it's not very good. Charizard, I actually would have had an F tier, but the new curse items actually made me put it in C tier because I actually think it's pretty good with the new curse item. I think Charizard's one of those Pokemon that didn't really have a good third item before. So now you just run like Muscle Band, I believe Scope Lens, and the new curse item. It does a lot of damage, can kill people on pad. I actually think it helped Charizard a lot there. Gengar also got buffed. Think it's pretty good. For solo queue at least. Talonflame, meh. But actually, Talonflame out of all these Pokemon is the most viable in competitive, probably. Like, you could actually play it in some competitive drafts and not be trolling. Azumarill, I think Azu's base stats are actually really good. It just doesn't have a place in the meta, really. It gets outranged too easily. Like, it has good sustain with Aqua Tail, but it gets outranged. Doesn't have good run away. So yeah, I don't know, the base stats are there. Same with Mamoswine, the base stats are there. Its kit is just not good enough, I think, for competitive at least. In solo queue, I think you could farm with these things actually if you're good at them. Mime, I love Mime. Like, I'm a Mime player, but it is not like the health isn't there. Like, I really wish they had buffed the health at least. The damage isn't really there. I think the curse items actually helped it a little. I've heard it's pretty good on mine, but yeah, it's not there. Sableye also, like, it has a different kind of playstyle, and I think that playstyle just doesn't work in this meta. I'm not a fan of Sableye. And yeah, F tier Pokemon, I'm not going to go too much into. I know people have a lot of questions for them. I might answer some of the questions below. But these Pokemon are just ass, in my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you in the next one.